Managing information technology without governance is essentially organized chaos. Servers are provisioned ad hoc, access rights are granted on request, and security is left to individual discretion. To convert a scattered data environment into a secure, predictable architecture, an organization requires a mechanism to enforce order. That core mechanism is an IT policy. But an effective policy is rarely a simple list of rules pinned to a breakroom board. It is a highly engineered, modular framework designed to dictate exactly how hardware, software, and human operators interact. The mechanics of these frameworks are detailed in Information Technology Policy and Strategy, authored by Professor Richard Boateng of the University of Ghana Business School. While early chapters of the text separate the theory of policy from the methodology of strategy, the core engineering of these documents happens later. Our focus relies strictly on the mechanics outlined in Chapter 3. We are now examining how an organization actually builds, structures, and implements these directives from the ground up. Creating an effective IT policy requires two distinct structures operating simultaneously: a rigid document architecture to hold the rules, and a dynamic organizational workflow to deploy them. Boateng breaks this down into two specific models. First, a 12-component blueprint for drafting the physical document. Second, an 8-step lifecycle pipeline used to build and maintain it. An organization can outline abstract security goals all year. Mastering these two intersecting models is the absolute only way to translate those goals into enforceable human behavior. This diagram represents the standardized 12-component blueprint that serves as the foundation for every formal IT policy. Depending on the scale of the organization, a single document might not utilize every single block, but this structure remains the baseline. To see how this framework is populated, we can deconstruct a standard enterprise directive, the Clean Desk Policy. The first two components capture the necessary tracking data. Policy information details version numbers, active dates, and status, while the overview provides an executive summary of the document. Component B establishes the purpose and rationale. To secure employee buy-in, the document must state the precise business or security justification for the rules it is about to enforce. Component 4 dictates the scope. This section draws a hard line around the policy, explicitly defining exactly who and what technologies are governed by these rules. These first 4 blocks form the meta layer. They do not dictate any specific behavior yet. Instead, they build the legal and operational boundaries required for the actual rules to function. With the boundary set, the document moves into the operational layer. Component 5 is authorization, identifying the specific governing body responsible for managing the policy. In our Clean Desk example, this authorization is assigned to the Office of Corporate Information Systems, or OCIS. Naming this office grants them the exclusive power to interpret and manage the rules. Component 6 contains the policy, standards, and guidelines. This is the core of the document, detailing the specific behavioral directives employees must follow. For a Clean Desk directive, this section mandates actions like actively locking workstations when stepping away and immediately clearing printer trays so sensitive documents are not left out in the open. But rules mean very little without enforcement. Component 7 establishes policy compliance. Here, the text dictates exactly how adherence is measured. For the Clean Desk Policy, that means periodic walkthroughs, video monitoring, and internal audits, along with a clear outline of the consequences for non-compliance. Pairing the precise directives in Component 6 with the measurable metrics in Component 7 is what turns a corporate suggestion into an enforceable corporate mandate. The final section of the blueprint manages external context and future updates. Component 8 lists related standards to anchor the document to external laws, while Component 9 provides a strict glossary of definitions and terms to remove any ambiguity. Components 10 and 11 outline dissemination and maintenance. These dictate exactly how the rules will be shared with the workforce and how the policy will be kept up to date. Dissemination requires a multi-channel approach. Relying solely on an employee handbook is insufficient. The document stipulates the use of educational seminars, intranet portals, and direct email notifications to guarantee maximum reach. Finally, Component 12 is the revision history. This acts as a vital audit log detailing every change made over time, the date of that change, and the party responsible. That completes the 12-part blueprint. But a perfect document sitting in isolation on a hard drive is useless. To build, approve, and execute that structure, the organization needs an assembly line. That assembly line is Boateng's 8-step policy development process. It is the sequential pipeline required to bring the document to life. Step 1 is initiate and establish structures. Policy work is resource-intensive, so it only begins when there is a compelling organizational need. These initiation triggers are concrete events: the adoption of new cloud technologies, shifting government regulations, or newly identified vulnerabilities in the firm's operations. Step 2 is review and research. Before writing a single word, the coordinating team analyzes existing industry standards and global legal frameworks to understand the constraints. Step 3 is draft. This is where the actual writing happens, and where the coordinating team fills out the 12-component blueprint we just deconstructed. Step 4 is consult and discuss. The draft is circulated to legal counsel, middle management, and end users to gauge how the rules will actually impact daily operations. Step 5 is approval. The revised draft is sent up the chain for formal sign-off from the board or senior executive committee. These first 5 steps make up the formulation phase. They systematically take a raw business risk and transform it into an authorized, highly structured governance tool. The pipeline shifts from theory to reality in Step 6, implementation. The approved provisions go live across the network. Implementing policy is a human problem. This stage requires active training to ensure all relevant employees are fully familiar with the new mandates and understand how to execute them. Step 7 is monitoring. An organization cannot assume compliance. They must proactively verify if the policy is working as intended in the real world. This monitoring relies entirely on the compliance metrics established back in Component 7 of the document, utilizing periodic audits and operational feedback to track performance. That feedback data feeds directly into the final phase, Step 8, review, evaluate, and revision. At predetermined intervals, the overall impact of the policy is evaluated against its original goals. Any gaps or new risks are identified, looping right back into Step 1 to trigger a new cycle of updates. A corporate policy is never finished. It operates as a continuous, cyclic engine of organizational alignment. Comparing the blueprint and development pipeline side by side reveals how deeply they intersect. Implementing rules in Step 6 depends entirely on Component 10 to disseminate them. When reaching Step 8 to revise, that action is recorded directly into Component 12's revision history. This interlocking system supports Professor Boateng's central philosophy: policies must be credible, implementable, enforceable, and sustainable. He defines this framework as an action-oriented living document. To survive contact with reality, a policy must constantly adapt. Initial implementations fail and technologies change. When that happens, the organization iterates. As illustrated, Plan A is crossed out for Plan B and eventually Plan C, ensuring the document always matches the current operational environment. The true power of IT governance lies exactly at this intersection. By pairing a rigid 12-part document architecture with a relentless 8-step operational lifecycle, an organization ensures its IT strategy actually becomes reality.